Good afternoon. My name is Ron Smith, and I proudly served in the United States Marine Corps from 10 October 68 to July of 73. Received a medical discharge out. Uh, Went through basic training at Camp Pendleton, or at San Diego, California, at ITR at Camp Pendleton. Went through comm school at San Diego. MOS was a 2542, which was a teletype operator, but even though I only spent maybe 6 months in that capacity, uh, prior to being discharged, I was an assistance communication instructor at Quantico, Virginia. Did my time in what we refer to as the jungle from August of 69 to September of 1970. Uh, Enjoyed my time in the Marine Corps. Upon my discharge, I was a Sergeant E5 on the E6 list. Another 6 months, if they would have let me stayed in, I would have picked up E6 in 5 years. So I thought I was doing pretty good for myself. I enjoyed my time in the Marine Corps. Tried to stay, but they wouldn't let me.
Where did you grow up at, Ron?
I grew up out here in Phoenix. Parents came out here in 1957, 1958. I was here up until I went in the Marine Corps in 68. Got out in 73, and then from there I was just all over the country from there. So I had my own little independence, so to speak.
When did you start thinking about joining the Marines?
I started thinking about that when my freshman year in college. My dad was very pro-education, and he says, you will go to college. Well, I did up until 2 weeks prior to my second semester finals. Vietnam was going on. I felt like I was under my dad's thumb, and I didn't like that anymore, so I dropped out of college and enlisted in the Marine Corps and was told that, you need to leave the house and go do your thing, which I did.
When it came time to joining, I'm guessing you enlisted, you weren't drafted?
I enlisted,
Okay.
yes.
Do you remember what that process was like?
No, but I can tell you what the process was when I got to receiving barracks in San Diego in October of 68.
Okay.
We were up on the third floor. They opened every window up in the receiving barracks there, made us strip down to our underwear, and it was colder than I can't say, but it was cold, and we were sitting there shivering. I remember that day very clear. I remember also stepping off the bus when they picked us up at the airport, and the DI's hollering at us, saying, put your feet on the yellow footprints and don't open your mouths. And we were too scared to do otherwise. The thought of intimidation, there is no definition for their intimidating. It's just above and beyond. But it made me the man that I am today.
What are the instructors like our drill sergeants like in boot camp?
Well, back then, we didn't have that little card we could hold up and say, I've got a headache, I don't want to do this today. If you backtalk the DI, you got slapped. You got a fist in the jaw. We PT'd, or physical training, until we couldn't hardly stand up, and then they pushed us even harder. It was very rigorous, very tiring, but that's what they did to make us a team, a unit of one.
How long was your boot camp?
My boot camp was 8 weeks. Nowadays it's, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 weeks long now, but mine was 8 weeks. And right after boot camp, I went right to Infantry Training Regiment, Camp Pendleton, which was another 4 weeks. I got leave to come home, and from there I went to the East Coast at the comm school. After comm school, I got sent to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
And then from North Carolina, that's when you took off to Vietnam?
Yes, I went to the company gunny and asked him what do I have to do for orders for FMF Westpac. And I remember to this day, his exact quote was, son, you are here for the duration of your enlistment. I looked at him and said, not happening. And 5 months to the day, I had orders for Staging Battalion, Camp Pendleton, California, FMF Westpac. I went to Vietnam.
What was the trip to Vietnam like? On the boat or
I know I
flown in?
flew commercial airliner. We left California and flew to Okinawa. Spent about a week in Okinawa, and then from there we flew into Da Nang in the I Corps part of South Vietnam.
Okay. You didn't have to go on a boat at all?
No, no, not getting there. I didn't. I did have the privilege when I got there. I was originally assigned to 5th and 7th Radio Reconstruction Battalion, and I was TD-wide, transferred temporary duty to another unit. And nobody would tell me what that unit was until I got there, and it was 3rd Marine Amphibious Forces. I was a bow gunner on a riverboat up and down the Da Nang River for a period of time. And that was not my training.
Didn't sound like it. So, when you first get to Vietnam, what do you remember about that first day, first getting there to Da Nang?
Well, that was probably one of the scariest days in my life. We were not issued a weapon until we were assigned to our unit, and so I was running around there for about 2 weeks without a weapon. So I mean, if they had rockets coming in or anything like that, I was unarmed. I was scared. I was a 19-year-old kid, and that is kind of a traumatic thing for an individual to be going through, especially in a hostile environment. You're in a foreign land. You can't speak the language. You don't know what they're saying. It's rather traumatic.
Do you remember any senses, smells, sounds, things like that?
Your sense of smell gets heightened. Your sound is heightened. Your vision is heightened. My last months over there, I was a reconnaissance sniper. And it was part of a 5-man team. We did a lot of covert missions over there. But you get to where you smell the enemy before you see them. And then when you see them, you hope that you've seen them before they've seen you. And in a lot of the missions that I went on, that was the case. We seen them or smelt them before they knew we were there. Your hearing becomes so sharp, and even today, I hear things that a lot of other people don't hear going on around me. You become very observant of what's going on around you. I don't sit with my back to an open door. I don't. It's just something I never did after coming back from Vietnam. I'm always cautious or conscious of what's going on around me. I don't sit still very long without turning my head and watching what's over my shoulder. I want to know what's back there. If I hear something, a noise, I will turn to look and see what that noise is. I'm just very cognizant of that situation. Have been ever since.
What was it like that first time entering combat?
It was scary at first until you squeeze that trigger and fire that first round. You don't know what's coming at you. You start opening fire and hoping you hit what's coming out there at you before they get a shot at you. They say that you don't worry about the bullet that's got your name on it. It's the one that's to whom it may concern. That's the one you got to watch for. I was unfortunate and caught a round in my knee on a patrol one afternoon. It was only one round fired, and it was from a sniper. And I stepped up on a tree that was blocking our path that was going across, and the one round was fired, and I caught it right here. And it took me down. But I didn't stay out of combat. I stayed in the action the rest of that mission.
How long were the patrols?
They would vary. It could be a 3-day patrol. It could be a week, 1-week patrol. If we had something that was very crucial, we were not allowed to eat any American food that was prepared in the mess hall. We had to eat the Oriental food, the Vietnamese food, the rice, the fish eggs, the eyes, that sort of thing. Your body secretes an odor of what you eat. A lot of people don't realize this. So we had to get to where our body was secreting, and that could take 2 to 3 weeks of eating this so that your body, of the oils, the smells coming off of, you smell like another Vietnamese. It was very crucial, very critical.
What was the mentality going into those zones where you know there might be some danger, there might be hostiles?
We were all on high alert. Because that was part of our job, was going into where there was a hostile environment, getting intelligence and getting back. 99% of the time it was without firing a shot. We had to sneak in, get what we needed, the pictures, whatever it was we needed, take a captive, and get out without them even knowing that we had been there. So you're very stealth, for lack of a better term here. You're very cognizant of what's going on around you. And you depend on your buddies in arms to make sure they got your back and you got theirs.
What's the craziest mission that you'd gone on?
Oh, the craziest mission I ever went on. Oh, Lordy. I don't know. I can't recall any of them being crazy, really. Well, there is one that does stand out. Was part of a forward team, and our orders was to take out a full colonel, NVA colonel, and we were not to return until he was done in, killed. And it was up by the DMZ, and we would sit in a sitting position for 4 hours looking through a scope without blinking an eye. And then when our relief was set up in place, they'd roll us over and pull our legs out because our legs were asleep. The guy that got him was the one that relieved me. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And he's standing out on the veranda. I hear about it. I didn't get to actually witness it. But the colonel was standing out on the veranda talking to his girl, and she turned her head, and he didn't even hear the bullet. And she turned around, and he was on the ground. And she freaked out. That was probably one of the most exciting things and exhilarating things I ever really got into over there. It's just a satisfaction that you got your mission accomplished and you got back out of there safe. That's exhilarating.
You mentioned being a gunner on a boat, right?
Yes.
What was that like going up the Da Nang River?
Bow gunner on the riverboat. I had no knowledge. The gunny, when I checked in, asked me if I had ever fired a 60 caliber machine gun. I said, Gunny, just in basic training. He says, good, you're my new bow gunner. And so you're sitting on the bow or on the boat there, and you're just tooling up and down the Da Nang River. We got very little action. Every once in a while, somebody from the bank would pop around at us, and we just waved it off and kept going. To me, that was boring. I really didn't enjoy that. Now, the boys down on the Mekong Delta, they were always catching rounds, but Da Nang River was very quiet. We have a lot of river boats that were running up down there. It was a very quiet and serene mission, if you want to put it that way. And then after that, I went to Force Logistics Command, and I was part of the crew that was in charge of all the comm lines in Southeast Asia. So, and at 3 months in a bunker, underground, 12-inch reinforced walls, you start to go stir crazy. And that's when I asked for a transfer out of there. That's how I ended up at 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines Recon.
How did the Vietnamese troops fight? How would you describe it?
How did the Vietnamese troops fight? Like cowards. We had what we called PFs, Popular Forces. And we would sometimes take them out on a patrol with us. And at the first sign of gunfight, This is from my personal experiences. Some of the other guys may have had different ones. But they would turn tail and run, or they may have led us into an ambush. I didn't trust any of them there. Not one did I ever trust. And to this day, I don't trust Vietnamese. I am very bitter towards them. And I know I shouldn't be. That war's been over for 50 years. I shouldn't be, but it's just one of those things. If you go into the situation I was in, you don't trust that segment of those people, I should say. No. But as far as the PFs over there, no. I never had any good fortune with them.
Did you ever second guess pulling a trigger?
Did I second guess pulling a trigger? You do that and you're not going to come home. You hesitate that split second to pull the trigger. The next round coming at you is going to get you. You don't have time to sit and think about it. Hesitation is not in your vocabulary over there. When that first round comes whizzing past your head, you open fire and return fire. You can't second guess it.
Did you ever pray?
I prayed every day that I would get to come home. I didn't know. I had no idea when I dropped out of college and went to Vietnam is I'd be coming back. And I hear from stories that my mom would watch the news every night and hoping that she wouldn't hear anything about the unit I was assigned to. You know, it's very hard on the parents of the men and women that served in Vietnam. Very hard.
Did you ever think you were going to die?
Did I think I was ever going to die? Death to me over there is not something I thought about. If you think about something that's going to happen, usually it's going to happen. So I never thought about dying over there. I lived every day to the fullest and did my job for what I was trained for, the best of my ability.
Let me think how to phrase this question to you, Ron. How many Vietnamese, Ron, do you think that you personally had to shoot fire at or kill?
How many Vietnamese did I kill or shoot at over there? I can't tell you how many I shot at, but it seemed like when I was opening fire, man, they were coming out of the woodwork. As a reconnaissance sniper, I have confirmed kills at over 1,200 yards. As to how many, I didn't keep track. I didn't want to know how many lives I took over there. I went over there to do a mission. My job was to help stop communism from invading Southeast Asia, which would be, to me, back in '68 when I decided to join the Marine Corps, would be a stepping stone to the other parts of the world to spread their communism. That's why I went there, was to help stop that. I don't know how many people I killed. I don't want to know. But I do know I've seen them drop. I just did not keep a tally.
Understandable. What was it like being near the airstrikes? Did you ever see any Ally artillery come in?
Every once in a while, the 7th Fleet would fire volleys, and you could hear them going over our unit there. The unit I was attached to was right next to Marine Air Group 16. And sometimes Charlie, firing at the Mag 16, which was a helicopter base, would overfire and hit our compound. I've got pictures, and I wish I could have brought them, of hooches being blown up. And when the sirens go off, you get out of your hooches and you hit the bunkers, you get someplace, get out of we've lost 2 or 3 hooches, as we call them, houses, due to airstrikes from friendly and the enemy too. But it's a whistling sound that you don't forget when that round is being fired from the Navy offshore. You know, it's just a sound that you do not forget.
When would you say you were the most scared?
When was I the most scared? I'd say the most scariest part is when I'm getting ready, I'm getting close to coming home. When you get down to, we had what we called so many days and a wake up over there. And when you get down to where you got 10 days and a wake up, that means you've got 11 days and you're going to be rotating home. When that countdown starts, that's when it gets really scary because you don't know if you're going to make it to your final day or not. The first part of the day or first part of your year over there, 13 months we served, you didn't worry about it so much. You were the newbie, and the newbies there, they had it rough. We got no support from the veterans over there that had been there for 6 or 8 months. You know, they figured, you know, we made it. You make it on your own. We made it on our own. That was the rough part. But I think the scariest part is when you're getting down to where you're what we refer to as a short timer, that you really start watching what you do. You're not so apt to volunteer for missions anymore. You have to really watch what's going on.
Did you drink a lot?
Did I drink a lot? Not so much in Vietnam. I had to keep a clear head. I might had 1 or 2 beers there. I was not a whiskey drinker at the time. I drank beer. And I was not a heavy drinker in Vietnam. I was not one of the social group. I didn't use any of the marijuana. Marijuana grew wild over there. I didn't get into that, and I would not associate myself with another Marine that was stoned all the time. I had myself, for me to get back home, I felt I had to be level-headed at all times. I picked up Corporal E4 over there, and then at that point I was an NCO, non-commissioned officer. And I had more responsibilities put on me.
Ron, what has stuck with you the most from your time in Vietnam?
Oh, what has stuck with me most while I was in Vietnam? I think the thing that stuck with me the most, I'm going to get emotional.
Okay.
Is some of the comradeship that we develop. The loss of a close friend was probably one of the hardest things I still deal with today. I don't know, it's just, that to me is the hardest thing I've had to deal with since I came back from Vietnam, is the loss of buddies that I was in a combat situation with.
What are your thoughts on war now?
What are my thoughts on war now? The Vietnam veterans that served was treated like dirt. We were called baby killers. We were spat on. People turned their back on us. And they're finally, 50 years later, coming around and thank you for your service. I'm not buying into that so much. You know, they should have done that 50 years ago. But the troops coming back from what I refer to as the sandbox, the Middle East, Somalia, any of those places over there, the way we were treated, they are not going to be treated that way when they come home. They're going to get the full respect that they are entitled to that we didn't get. That is my feelings on that. And I have stood flag lines at the airport when our troops came back from Iraq, Iran. And we've had a couple people try to bust through the ranks there. And it don't happen. Not with a Vietnam veteran standing there. They don't come through the flag line. You're going to treat these kids with the respect that we didn't get, whether you like it or not, or you leave.
How has the war changed you as a man?
How has the war changed me as a man? I think it made me stronger than I was when I went. Even when I went in the Marine Corps, starting then, it changed my whole philosophy on life. I'm a stronger individual. I'm not one to take a lot of guff off of anybody. If I believe in something, I stand my ground. It may upset you, may tee you off, but that's the way I am now. I've got a stronger outlook on life, and I live every day to the fullest. I don't know when my last breath will come. I just keep going every day, hard charging.
Ron, thank you for your service. Thank you for taking the time to do an interview with me.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I know it wasn't easy, but you did a great job.
Thank you. My pleasure.